Hey there guys, how's it going? And thanks for checking out this video. We've got something very different today, and before I get into this video I just want to say, if you're into this kind of thing and you want to know about tech, PC building, gaming, all that kind of stuff, I've made a second channel which is linked down below called Creator Tech. That's where I'll be doing any PC building, tech tips. Also I'll be giving tips for people who want to make YouTube content or live streaming on which software to use, which are the best components available at the time. So check that out and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. But in this one we're making a gaming machine for under £500, and there's a few reasons that I decided to do this. First of all, with the price drops in RAM recently and even some graphics cards, I wondered what kind of performance you could get at the budget price range at the end of 2019. Also had someone ask me if I could make them a machine for about that kind of price, more specifically one that was able to play not just Arc but also do a little bit of light content creation, perhaps streaming and recording video. So I get a lot of you guys ask me, how much should you spend on a gaming machine, pre-built or make it your own? And in all honesty, that kind of thing we'll discuss on the Creator Tech channel, because obviously there are varying opinions, a lot of detail to go into, but here this is the absolute budget build in my opinion to play modern games and what we're going to be aiming for, which is obviously 1080p and 60 frames per second. Another inspiration to make this video, actually, I went onto a local business's website who does PC repairs and sells gaming machines, and they had a gaming machine for £550 that didn't even have a graphics card in it. So I thought maybe I could sell this to someone local and I could make a few for the locals, because they're getting absolutely ripped off if they're going to that place. So let's see how much better we can do from the build that they had. Now, of course, if you're trying to make a mega budget system, there's a few shortcuts you can take that I'm not going to do. Number one is secondhand parts, and number two is just trawling through eBay and stuff like that for weeks and weeks and weeks, trying to get your components at the lowest prices, like god tier finds on those kinds of sites. We're just going to go for new parts and the cheapest that we can find on Amazon or Newegg, places like that. And also we're going to make sure that it looks kind of decent. We don't want a plain box. I mean, we could make a PC inside a cardboard box if we wanted, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a new gaming machine that also looks the part. So we're going to be building this PC from scratch, and going on PC Part Picker you can put together an absolute bargain basement PC for about £350. That includes a super low tier graphics card. However, my budget was 500, so let's use all of that up in making sure we have the best performance possible while also trying to stay, you know, in that budget. So I could have gone for a £350 one, but that wasn't the point here. Let's get as much power as we can for £500. So first of all, CPU choice. I know that I needed at least 4 cores, and the budget CPUs come in at 4 cores these days, and they cost £50 to £80. Now, all the benchmarking that I can see online shows that these budget CPUs actually do a really good job at playing games. They might bottleneck when you do the highest settings possible, but still for the price, an absolute bargain. So we're going to go for either obviously the AMD 2200 or the i3 9100F. Both good choices. AMD's doing really well right now in terms of their CPUs, but we're going to go for the Intel this time because it has a slightly faster clock speed. Now, this is a 4-core processor, the i3 9100F. Now, that will be difficult for doing any streaming. However, we've got a little bit of a trick up our sleeve for that when it comes to the NVIDIA graphics cards that we'll talk about a little bit later on. So the high clock speed gives us the i3 9100F for our CPU. Next up, motherboard. Of course, you can go super bargain basement with this again, but most people seem to want to avoid that. The motherboard is an essential part of the PC. If the motherboard has problems, your PC is just, well, it's useless and it's very hard to sort out afterwards. So you want a kind of reliable brand if you can, and I ended up getting this ASUS ROG H310 motherboard. It actually comes compatible with 9th gen processors, so from Intel obviously, so that was absolutely perfect for us, and it looks like a decent bit of kit actually. It's quite a nice build quality. This motherboard will also support DDR4 RAM up to 2666 megahertz, and that is perfect for what we're going to do. It's going to mean we get some nice RAM speeds as well. Now, while shopping for motherboards, I found on Amazon in particular, I'm sure other places do this, you can get motherboard bundles where they put a motherboard with a CPU and the cooler on and the RAM all together and then ship that out to you. This actually isn't a bad idea. It only costs like 10 to 20% more. And also, for a first time builder, if you're worried about motherboard compatibility and RAM compatibility, that sorts that problem out for you. But I wanted to do this from scratch and I wanted to learn this skill. I wanted to learn more about this. So I decided not to do that, and I went with obviously all the parts separate, put them together myself. However, we are going to do a second build like that on the other channel, which obviously is linked below. In terms of RAM, we're going to be going with 8 gigabytes, which I know a lot of you will be thinking isn't enough, but in all the testing that I did, no game used anywhere near 8 gigabytes of RAM. Also, we're presuming that if you're on a super budget, you're looking to save a bit of money and might not have the extra right now, and this is going to be DDR4 2666 megahertz, which is a good speed and also is going to perfectly complement our motherboard. You can also upgrade RAM very easily later on if you get a little bit more money and you find that this isn't performing well enough. Now, obviously, we're making a budget gaming PC. Probably the most important decision here is the graphics card. Now, I knew I wanted to go for an NVIDIA graphics card that had the NVENC chip on, so that meant 1050 onwards. So our options for our budget were a 1050, a 1050 Ti or a 1650. Now the 1050 Ti and the 1650 were about £150, so pretty close, but I decided to go with the 1650. This is a newer graphics card than the 1050 Ti, so maybe the drivers will be supported for longer, and also it has 4 gigabytes of VRAM, which is a very nice amount for a budget system in this day and age. Of course, we're going to need a power supply, nothing too glamorous about this, but when building budget, obviously it's tempting to go for the cheapest one you can find. However, you not only risk it breaking on you very easily, but potentially setting your house on fire. So I didn't want to go super cheap with this, although with a bit of a result, we found this Corsair 550 watt power supply for £40 on Amazon, which is basically as cheap as it gets for a power supply of this standard. It's not modular, which isn't great, but it will do absolutely fine. So snap one of these up, we're going to stick this in. It also gives us a little bit of headroom for if they want to upgrade later down the line, provides a little bit of extra power that they might need. Lastly, we're going to need some storage, a decent amount as well, and this is a budget build, so I decided to go with a 1TB Seagate old school hard drive. These things are pretty reliable and should do the job just fine. However, as you're going to see if you stay tuned, I actually changed my mind on that a little bit further on down the line. So next up, we need a case to throw all this in. We're going micro ATX with this build, absolutely fine for a budget build. Our motherboard is micro ATX, so looking for a micro ATX case. If you don't know what that means, it's basically quite a small form factor case. Having a shop around, there's actually quite a lot of options here from the £25 to £50 range. It's quite rare that you'll get them for 25, but if you look at reviews on Amazon, on YouTube for the budget ones, see what you think. Now, I of course wanted one that looked quite good as well, and I found this one. This is a CIT, I think it's called, a CIT F3 Micro ATX computer here, and this is blue. Obviously you can get them with different color stripes on, and it has 2 fans in it. It has one on the front, one on the back, so not bad ventilation, not gonna have to buy any extra fans here, and also it has a, as you can see, panel in the side, and that's actually the thing put together. So we're going to be doing benchmarks of course in this video, so you can look out for that. Now those things range from £25 to £35. I just picked the blue one up because that happened to be £25 on the day. Budget build, saving every penny that we can. Now cable management was a bit tricky in this PC because of the case. I won't go into details there, that's more for the tech channel, but there was some problems. If you want to see me talk about problems like that, that'll be in the Creator Tech channel. Now I installed Windows, and if you don't know, you can go to the Windows store and download a copy of Windows that will be unactivated and install that on a new PC. So you don't actually have to pay for Windows, although if you want it fully activated, you'll have to do that at a later date. There's really not much difference, a watermark on the screen and some settings within Windows itself. Now I guess here we'd go into the benchmarking, but this is where I had the realization. This computer was exceptionally slow. Now I knew it would be kind of slow, but I didn't think it would be super slow. I mean, just trying to install the games, download all of the drivers was taking so long. Windows were hanging, all those kinds of things, opening things up. I was like, this just isn't good enough. Like, what is wrong with this system? And I went to bed, woke up the next day and thought, you know what, why don't I try putting an SSD in there? I had an SSD SSD that I was going to use for another build, slipped that in, reinstalled Windows on there, and the difference it made was absolutely unbelievable. Now, I'm someone who has used SSDs for a while. SSDs? I've used SSDs for a while even, and I have an external hard drive, which is an old school spinning one, but I just had no idea the difference it makes these days. This SSD made everything super quick in Windows itself. So I'd say if you're gonna go budget, do not buy a normal hard drive only. You absolutely either have to have a small SSD and a normal hard drive, or what I would do is spend that little bit extra and go for a bigger SSD, like a 1 terabyte, something like that. It'll cost you about £90 these days, or you can just spend £40 or £50 on a 500 gig SSD, which is what I did, and then later on down the line, a couple of months, you find it difficult to manage all your files, then get another external or internal hard drive. Really not that much more. But either way, if you're going to build a PC for the first time and you're building a budget one trying to save, do not just have a standard hard drive if you want to do anything on it. So this is our system right here. This came to £460. So we actually had that little bit of extra money that we could have spent on a big SSD like a 1 terabyte and still stayed under the £500 mark. So now it's time to test this on obviously Arc, which I know this guy wants to know about, as well as some other games, and see how it does. So now to get into some benchmarking, let's see how this little beast handles the games and, of course, more specifically Ark Survival Evolved. Now, because I specifically went with Nvidia so I could try the NVENC chip out, I decided to try and record on the actual PC itself using OBS with the NVENC encoder. It's very, very simple to do. Just go into your OBS and under encoder settings, you make sure that NVENC is selected. You won't get this with an AMD card. Now, I could have used GeForce Experience and that does use the same encoder, so I would have got similar results, but I just wanted to show you guys that you can run OBS with this PC and it will record absolutely fine. So first of all, just for a laugh, I decided to load up Ark on all epic settings, everything maxed out, resolution scale, we're playing at 1080p, but yeah, this is epic settings, everything turned on, and you can see we're getting around 20 FPS. I would not recommend playing on this, obviously feel free to if you want, and it was not really very playable, but interesting to see how it would handle the epic settings. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a little play around, adjust some of the settings so that you can actually run the game more smoothly. There are of course INI files that you can get, some of them are not legal to play on the official servers and some of them are. And what I would recommend if you have a budget system is put the low settings then turn the settings up rather than go on epic and then turn them down, because some of the epic settings won't actually turn off until you restart the system. So next I decided to try out what Nvidia GeForce Experience suggested was the best settings for this game based on user feedback and what they think. Pretty much it was a medium style preset, and as you can see we get from 50 to high 30s frame rate, which is absolutely fine, looks good enough, but I felt like I could make the game look a little bit better than that and also reach that 60 FPS frame rate that we obviously want to hit. So on screen now you can see the settings that I recommend. Honestly, anti-aliasing, post-processing on medium. I would have low on everything else apart from textures. For me, the textures and the resolution is what makes the game look really nice and crisp. Also, we do have some of the post-processing effects on, but not the ones that are on Epic that require a restart. And as you can see, I think it looks pretty nice, and you can tune it up or down a little bit with the resolution scale to hit that 60 FPS mark, which is obviously what you want on a 60 Hz monitor, which you're probably going to be trying for if you're on a budget build. So we've got that one answered. Yes, you could play Ark 1080p 60 FPS with some nice looking textures and everything plays absolutely fine on this machine. Let's have a look at how this little budget thing will handle some of the other more recent games and do some other general benchmarking. So next I decided to go with Destiny 2. This game is now free to play, so obviously great for someone on a budget, and it's actually got a lot of gameplay to be had even without the DLCs. So can the budget gamer handle this game? and how will it do? Well, first of all, I decided to go with the NVIDIA GeForce Shadowplay recommended settings, and well, we got way over 100 frames per second, probably 120 average on there, which was super nice, but a little bit unnecessary because we're playing on a 60Hz monitor. So I decided to experiment to see what would hit that magic 60 number with the best settings possible. And to my surprise, I put everything on max settings, every single setting, including like tessellation and things like that, and still we were hitting 60 FPS. Now in some of the really big battles we dropped slightly below it, but with a little adjustment, maybe with post-processing effects messed with a little bit, you can hold a 60 to 70 FPS with the highest setting. Now this is also a more general tip, but if you are playing a game on a budget system that's going to be bottlenecking at CPU or GPU, a good idea is to get some settings that will run at 70 to 80 FPS and then actually VSync or limit the frame rate to 60. That means that your processor or your GPU should have a little bit more headroom should it need to do anything else or do things in the background, and I find ends up in a lot less stutters. Most games are well optimized so it doesn't happen, but some games, if you don't do this, the game will stutter. For example, the next game we're looking at, Fortnight. Now Fortnite was a very interesting one. I found that we were getting 150 FPS to 100 FPS down to 80, quite a lot of fluctuations in this game. So what I found is the best thing to do, like I just said, was get some settings where it ran at about 80 FPS and then frame limit it to 60. I mean, if you're playing on a 60Hz monitor, that is obviously what you need to do anyway, which I presume you would do, because playing on a high hertz monitor with a budget system like this is kind of pointless unless you're literally only playing CSGO and League of Legends. So if I didn't do that, I did find I got some stuttering, so definitely recommend doing a frame limit trick with this, but you can still obviously get some very nice settings, but make sure you do that so you get a nice smooth experience. I decided to try out some Rust. This is a game that you see not many people benchmarking or trying out in traditional ones, and it's one that I thought you guys might be interested in playing. And as you can see here, the results are great. And with this game, this was the GPU that was being used a lot. The CPU was only at 40 to 50%. Now this can change across different games, so different games are going to give you different results for a budget system. You might have a budget system performs well on one, but not particularly on another. I mean, for instance, Arc is a great example of that, but Rust seems to actually handle really well, although it is a little bit heavier on the RAM side of things. So this game, heavier on the RAM, which seems to free up the CPU a bit, but it does actually result in a pretty good experience, as you can see, running very smoothly. So overall, I actually had a great time trying to build this system. I saw it as a bit of a challenge, and I knew that I was building a system for someone who was going to really enjoy it. Now I did do some more benchmarking with this system, some traditional time spy benchmarking, as well as benchmarking games that have built-in benchmarks like Sleeping Dogs and Dirt 3, and I am going to be testing that against another budget build. Now I have gone and built another system for around the same price, but instead of going with the Nvidia and the Intel, I've gone full AMD processor, AMD graphics card, and potentially way more performance at the expense of the NVENC chip. Now the video of me building and testing that alternative system for the same price is live right now over on the Creator Tech YouTube channel. So like I said earlier, link to that is in the description, where I'm building an AMD build with a 3200 processor and a Radeon 580, which has just gone down in price, and seeing what it can do. So head on over to the Creator Tech YouTube channel, and in the comment section of that video, let me know what you'd like to see me either build or review next. I've also got some tech that I could do, so if you're looking for me to review any kind of gadgets, or if you want to see another PC build for a different price, let me know in the comment section of the Creator Tech video.